Welcome back to the show. Today I am joined by Natalia Almalin, the decentralization coordinator at Metis and the co-founder of Crypto Chicks. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So you are the mom of Vitalik Buterin, but we're not going to talk about him today, right? Because you have your own projects. One is a foundation and the other is a nonprofit. Can you start by telling me about Crypto Chicks?
With pleasure. Crypto Chicks is an educational nonprofit. Which was founded back in 2016. At the time, we were going to various crypto events, and we were realizing that there are very few women who attend this type of events. We also started experimenting with crypto ourselves, and very frequently, and we're realizing that it's actually quite challenging, and there's lack of educational material, and things are not straightforward and trivial. And we thought that there's a great value in creating a company that will help women to learn about everything crypto in a safe environment, and that was that. Fast forward to 2025, almost 10 years, and we now global nonprofit. We have representations in several countries around the world, and we are now focusing. We're continuing focusing on education for everyone, but we're also specifically focused on educating the youth.
Yeah.
Because I think that we owe it to ourselves to equip our children with the tools, specifically tools in technology, because technology is taking the world by storm. It's everything, blockchain, yes, but AI, everything that happens, there's so much change. And I think the earlier we start introducing these concepts, the better better outcomes we're going to achieve. So Crypto Chicks is a recipient of the Can Code grant of Government of Canada. In partnership with Mindfuel, we are working on delivering various technology-related educational content to schools across Canada. That includes blockchain, AI, it includes business aspects, and how to build your website, how to start your business, and all that is available also on our websites where anyone can come in and learn about it. Website is cryptochicks.ca. And there's linked to a bunch of other websites from there that you can explore.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. And as they say, like the jobs that our children are going to have probably don't exist yet.
I'm sure they don't.
Right? With how fast everything is changing. So if someone wanted to get a hold of you, the people who would reach out to you would be school administrators.
We actually doing proactively. We're reaching out ourselves because we want to engage schools. We reach out to school boards, we reach out to individual schools, and if there is an interest in this type of content, then the teacher or administrator will get back to us and we arrange for the class.
Yeah, it's really incredible. I want to switch now and ask you about Metis. Mm-hmm. Can you explain what it is for a listener who might not completely understand blockchain? So people who haven't been to the Crypto Chicks course.
Blockchain essentially allows you to make all kind of transactions without involvement of a third party. For example, today, if I want to send you money, I may go, we do it through the bank. I ask my bank to send money to your bank and it deposits it into your account. Blockchain enabled completely different paradigm where we can remove the third parties and transact between ourselves in a very secure, trustworthy environment. Why is it important? Because trust is a very important aspect. How do I know if I told you that, I sent you money? How do you make sure that you actually have it? Right, so with blockchain technology, you actually guaranteed that you're going to receive it. And that is the promise on a very basic level. So in terms of Metis, we are building infrastructure for future businesses. And this infrastructure has multiple blocks. multiple foundations. And we started out 5 years ago building out the layer 2 solution on Ethereum, which is called the network called Andromeda. And essentially what layer 2 solutions do is they help to scale Ethereum. Maybe let's step back and say why Ethereum needs to be scaled. Because to date, let's just see how blockchain work, right? So let's imagine a situation that we have people at the bus stop, and the bus comes in, and we get a bunch of these people on the bus, and they travel to the destination. Then the queue of other people in the meantime gathers. Then the next bus come in, and they get on the bus, and they get to the destination. So with the blockchains today, it's like that. Transactions that we do between ourselves are people that are waiting for the bus, or which is in blockchain terms is a block. And these transactions get included in the block, and they essentially after that being executed. And everyone gets whatever is being sent to them, right? The problem is that in the beginning, when there are only few people on the bus station, there is one bus and it's great and it goes. And in 12 seconds or so, there is a next bus that comes in and take more people, and it goes. And that's how Ethereum is today. The block is produced at about every 10, 15 seconds, all right? And it fills up with transactions. But when it becomes too many people that in a rush hour that want to take a bus, it's basically becomes a jam, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's where layer 2 solutions come in. They are built on top of Ethereum, and they kind of allow, for example, Andromeda is optimistic rollup. So they allow it to bunch together a whole bunch but more transactions and put it all in, back onto Ethereum, essentially.
Right.
And that's how it works. However, what we're noticing now, and that's how Andromeda works, our base network, and it's good for any project that wants to deploy something on it, whether it's DeFi, whether it's all kind of applications, right? That they can independently, they don't need the third-party permission, they don't need our permission, they can just come and build their projects on a blockchain. It's totally permissionless, as we call it, right? Because everybody can come and go. However, what we're noticing today is that with the development of new technology, with the advancement of AI, if somebody, for example, wants to come and build something, their AI project on chain, it's impossible to do because the throughputs and speed of even layer 2 blockchains is not sufficient to support that computational load that AI requires. And that's where the Hyperion comes in. So Metis Hyperion is a new kind of blockchain. It's also layer 2 built on top of Ethereum, and it then inherits its security properties as a result. But how is it different is that it actually allows to speed things up quite a bit, because now instead of taking, everyone waiting for one bus, we now have 10 buses, 100 buses, and they run in parallel.
Okay.
And that's how Hyperion speeds things up significantly and allows for but that's one of example how it allows, right? To have more computationally intense project to execute on chain.
So what's a real world, like something for people to understand that Hyperion solves? What's a real world issue?
Yeah, the issue is, as I started saying, is that the modern blockchains, they are not fast enough, and they will be expensive in order to support the type of environments that AI, for example, allows, right? They are going to be, they will be creating these bottlenecks that I was describing, and also cost prohibitive from the economic perspective.
So what kind of applications or industries do you see this technology benefiting?
Well, it could be many kind of industries, and I'm sure in the beginning you mentioned that our kids will be working at the jobs that don't
Yeah.
exist. So similarly, what I find with the advancement of technology, I'm sure there will be industries created that don't even exist here today. It will happen very fast, but in 5 years maybe it will be all the talk, and but today we're just not even imagining it. But as an example, right, what can it do today? It can enable different kind of, for example, it can enable different types of applications. So for example, for DeFi, it could enable the high frequency trading applications, which up until now it's not possible to do on blockchain because of the speed limitations and capacity. But it will allow to do that. There would be also, again, as I mentioned, AI is a very good use case, because today AI is there is no AI project essentially living at a large scale, living on chain, and all of that is controlled by several centralized corporations. So if you think about things like ChatGPT or Gemini, the tools that we hear on everyday basis and use, right? All of these tools essentially controlled by a couple of corporations. And importantly, we don't really know what is going on inside of the guts of those tools. So I'll give you an example. I think actually it was just a couple of days ago, there was an article about it, how there was a recommendation for the summer reading that was published in one of the newspapers.
Okay.
And this recommendation was, as it turns out, generated by AI, and it wasn't very well verified by an author. And as a result, there was 15, I believe, I may be misremembering, but I think there was 15 books that were recommended, out of which 10 didn't exist, because AI just came up with it. And some people don't realize that it can happen, but one of the known things about AI is hallucinations, so-called. And this is when AI just spits out something very confidently that is absolutely non-exists or is not correct.
Yeah.
I can give you example from my personal life. I was doing a research about the weather in 2 cities. And it gave me very detailed tables outlining everything, all the information. And I was comparing it all, and I came to I was specifically zeroing out on the rainfall volume. And it gave me all the analysis out from where I concluded that city A is significantly wetter than city B. After which, at the bottom, it gave me a summary where it says, so it's clear that city B is wetter than city A. And I said, how could it be? Like the tables that you shared with me show, demonstrate that it's otherwise.
Yeah.
And basically it said, oops, I'm sorry, thank you for bringing it to my attention. So we have the situations where you cannot really trust the AI. It's not really verifiable.
Yep.
And that's one of the big problems that needs to be solved. And that's one of the things we're working on.
So how will Hyperion solve that problem? And how does it maintain compatibility with Ethereum?
Yeah. So Hyperion is by itself will be solving the infrastructure problem that I was mentioning earlier, because it will allow for AI applications to be on chain and to be verifiable because through technology that we're using, and that is one aspect of that. And what was the second question? Sorry.
How does it maintain?
Oh, how to maintain? Yeah. So it's just like any layer 2. It's essentially just it's a state information on Ethereum. It's anchors to Ethereum, the information about transactions, and so it's secured by Ethereum in this way.
So, what sets it then apart? What's the big thing that sets Hyperion apart from other layer 2?
Mm-hmm. I would say a couple of things that comes to mind. First, it has decentralized sequencing and decentralized sequencing nodes, which are part of the Hyperion. And this essentially allows the blockchain to stay more decentralized, meaning no single party can take control of it. But also by redistributing the computational resources between these different nodes instead of just having one, it makes the capacity and the throughput more enhanced. So that's one thing that comes to mind. Secondly, it supports instant transactions because typically, it takes time for transaction to be processed. But in case of Hyperion, it processes it instantly because of the technology that we are developing. Thirdly, it's the very high throughput. We're talking about not buses, but high-speed trains, right? Going in parallel and taking all this load, the transactional and computational load. There is no other L2 right now that can actually do it in active environment. And then I think and then the fourth, last but not least, it's also was built with AI in mind. It has certain features that would allow AI applications to natively exist and work. It also makes things much easier for builders. Because one thing you need to keep in mind is that we want to bring many people into this new economy, and it requires many developers. But not many developers are proficient in blockchain technology, right? So what we prepared, also built, is the so-called Metis SDK, which is the developer-centric framework. It has pre-made tools for developers that make it easy to deploy and run applications, so maybe AI agent or whatever it is, without actually, understanding how the nuts and bolts work.
Okay, so that was the next question I wanted to ask is who is this built for?
It's built for essentially anyone who can benefit from the super high speed. And this could be, as I was mentioning, new DeFi applications. It could be new gaming applications. It could be deep-in applications. It's really for speed. It's also built for AI because, as I mentioned, we have certain features that allow native AI applications running in chain. And whatever the new innovations, more importantly, that people come up with.
So it solves a really big problem, right? But then, so why isn't ChatGPT using it? What?
So it's actually tries to address the problems of chat, not Hyperion, because Metis also has the lazy eye, which is another. It's kind of like the way I think of it is it's an infrastructure for AI economy. So that actually will help with some issues with ChatGPT. So if we stand back, we talk about ChatGPT, and the key issues is it's essentially a black box. We don't understand how things work. There's no way to verify the outputs because it just spits it out.
Yeah.
And unless you go and do your own somehow research, it's you don't know how you got from point A to point B, right?
Yeah.
And so the other project, Lazy Eye, is actually the one that helps to address and solve that part of it. Where Hyperion essentially is the execution layer.
Okay.
And this Lazy Eye is a protocol layer that is this. So it's all kind of modular structure, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So is that all of the, or are there more projects for Metis? Is that it?
There is a ton of project at Metis, right? So we started with Andromeda, which is great basic layer 2. So now we build Hyperion, which is a very high speed, AI optimized layer 2. We have Lazy Eye, which is built to solve these hard AI challenges that I was mentioning. And also we have Vote, which is the layer 2 network on top, which is built on top of Bitcoin. We also have a ZKM project, which is essentially advancing the technology such as zero-knowledge proofs and how they can be applied and how we can benefit from it. For example, in a setting with the AI that we discussed earlier, instead of it being completely unverifiable, ZK and verified computing, it can help you to essentially make sure that everything that happens with a data set is validated, and you have a real audit trail to suppose, so that everyone can know and go and on blockchain check, when the data was, who submitted the data, how it was trained, how it was used, etc.
So going back to what we were talking about, that kids they don't know that the job doesn't exist, that they're going to have, because of how quickly everything evolves and changes, then your products have to be evolving just as quickly, right?
Absolutely, yes. It's a key part. And I think the technologies like blockchain technology and AI are the mostly, I like, if you think regular technology, it changes, but this is like on drugs, right?
Yeah.
The change is just enormous. How many, you cannot read everything about what happens if you wanted to. It's so much.
Yeah. So how does the team work in order to keep up with all of this, or stay ahead of it? I guess you have to stay ahead of it.
Yeah. So we came up with a vision for us, and essentially we are the vision was based on the gaps that we identified that we see in the industry, and we are working diligently towards getting to these milestones that will get us to our vision.
Okay.
So in terms of milestones, the first milestone is, develop testnet. For example, Hyperion recently launched its testnet. So it's actually, you can go and see how it's working. And in several months, we'll be launching the mainnet. And that's where really it's going to become very interesting. We also will be launching LesAI later, testnet, and mainnet as well. So it's all these building blocks that we're very focused on, and but you cannot do 10-year plan for this kind of industry. Like, it's not the corporation that sells the chips in the supermarket, right?
Yeah.
It's really, you have to I think what's important is to identify an issue and get on its fast, so that you capture the first mover advantage, and you deliver something that can be of real value and take things to the next level. And then from there, you look and see, okay, where are the gaps? What can I do to improve it more? And you kind of go to the next level. That's how innovation works, right?
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Sort of as a last sort of topic, I wanted to ask, as a first part, how did you get involved in this? And then also, your job title is decentralization coordinator. So what does a decentralization coordinator do?
Okay, yeah, very good. So I'm glad you asked it. How I got into it, a very easy answer. I got into it from my son, who was in a space since like a very early Bitcoin days. And I learned about Bitcoin from him. I first thought it was some stuff that drug dealers use, and I was very concerned. But very soon I understood that it's actually not.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned before, back in 2016, that's when we really started getting seriously into it with our education.
Right.
In terms of decentralization coordinator, it's actually not just me. We have several people who work in foundation. We'll have the same title. And it's just underscores how important decentralization is to our core and to the core of our project. So decentralization ensures that there is no single entity or person that controls anything. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very important. And for example, let's say you have money in a bank, but tomorrow bank can decide that, you are doing something wrong, and, your money is gone. You lose your access to it, as an example, right? That's an extreme example, of course, but it highlights the powers of centralized entities and what they can do. With the blockchain, nobody can do it, because your money belongs only to you. Your project belongs only to you. Nobody can come and shut it down because they don't like it. And it's important that not from the in this space, unfortunately, there is quite a few bad actors. Mm-hmm. If you follow the space, you read the news, there is always a hack going on.
Yeah.
And then this is natural because the technology is still nascent. Some people say, well, it's been around for 15 years. Yes, some technology like Bitcoin has been around 15 years. Some project launched earlier, but in a in the grand scheme of things, there is still things that needs to be hashed out. We're still in a building mode. We're not sitting in the kind of, sipping a coffee and enjoying the fruits of our labor, right? So these things happen. There's a hack attack, hackers, attacks, different happening in the space, and it's much easier for this attack to happen in a setting where you are centralized. And with the decentralization, it also helps with kind of making sure that no one person or entity can take over your protocol and take ownership away from you.
Right. So how does Metis protect itself?
We are very it's Finnish, I would say it's in our DNA. We're very focused, like with our project we work on, and I mentioned a few before, we always make sure that it is decentralized. For example, one of you asked me before how Hyperion is different from the others, and one of the things I started talking about was decentralized sequencer nodes. And it's basically means that we have several and no one can take control of the whole thing. When you only have one node, then the whole node can control everything. Right. So that's like one of the things that we're working on, right?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking today. It's been great.
Appreciate having you.